Someday, someone is going to bury you. They'll dig a hole in the ground. They'll lower you into it. Then a small group of people will gather around a patch of dirt in their nicest clothes and do something that makes no survival sense at all. They'll grieve over a body that can no longer grieve back. Stop and feel how strange that is. Once a person is gone, the body left behind is just biology. It can't be saved. It can't be helped. By every cold rule of nature, the smart move is to walk away and not waste the energy. And yet, you won't walk away. No human group anywhere on Earth, and any time we can reach, ever simply walked away from its dead. Why not? This is the story of the strangest thing your species does. Not fire, not tools, not language, burial. The act of taking the dead and treating them like they still matter, and the further back you trace it, the stranger it becomes. Because the evidence is starting to suggest that humans were burying their dead before they were even fully human. Let's begin with everything that doesn't bury its dead, which is almost everything. A lion does not bury another lion. A fish feels nothing when the fish beside it floats to the surface. For most of life on this planet, death is simply an off switch, noticed by no one. The body stays where it falls, and the world moves on. That is the default setting for living things. So the real question isn't why we bury our dead. The question is how a single branch of apes broke the default. Now here's where it gets complicated, because grief and burial are not the same thing, and the difference matters enormously. Some animals clearly feel something. Elephants will stop at the bones of a dead elephant and go quiet, touching the skull with their trunks, sometimes returning to the same spot for years. Chimpanzee mothers have been seen carrying their dead infants for days, even weeks, grooming a body that will never groom back, unable to set it down. Researchers who study this call it animal thanatology, which is just a formal name for how animals respond to death. The feeling is real, but feeling is not the same as a funeral. Then there are the crows. At the University of Washington, a researcher named Kaylee Swift ran a now famous set of experiments with her colleague John Marsluff. When a crow dies, other crows don't ignore it. They gather. They call out. They form a loud, agitated crowd around the body, what looks unmistakably like a funeral. For a moment, it seems like proof that grief is everywhere. But Swift found something colder underneath. The crows weren't mourning. They were studying. They were memorizing the place and the danger, learning that here is where death happens, so avoid it. The gathering wasn't about love. It was about survival. And that's the line. That's the edge that makes humans so bizarre, because we do the exact opposite of what the crow does. We don't avoid the place of death. We mark it. We build on it. We return to it on purpose, year after year, carrying flowers, to stand somewhere we know a body lies. What kind of animal does that? To find the answer, we have to go down into the ground, specifically into a cave in Spain. Deep in the hills of northern Spain, in a site called Atapuerca, there's a narrow shaft that drops into a chamber archaeologists named the Cima de los Huesos. The name means the pit of bones, and it has earned it. At the bottom, researchers, led by the Spanish paleontologist Juan Luis Arzuaga, have recovered the remains of at least 28 individuals, not modern humans. An earlier species, an ancestor, sitting low on the family tree, living roughly 430,000 years ago. 430,000 years. Sit with that number for a second. This is so far back that our own species did not exist yet. And yet, here are 28 bodies, gathered at the bottom of a single shaft, in a place with no other sign that anyone lived there. No scattered tools, no cooking fires, just the dead, deep underground, where they did not fall by accident. Someone put them there. And then there's the strangest detail of all. Among the bones, in that pit, the excavators found a single beautiful hand axe. It was carved from a rare pink quartzite, unlike anything else at the site, carefully shaped, never used. They nicknamed it Excalibur, one exquisite object placed among the dead almost 500,000 years ago, the first grave goods. The first time, as far as we can tell, that a creature looked at death and answered it with a gift. But the pit of bones is not even the part that breaks your brain. That comes next. In 2013, in a cave system called Rising Star in South Africa, A team led by the paleoanthropologist Lee Berger sent explorers through a gap in the rock, barely 7 inches wide, into a chamber full of bones. They belonged to a creature no one had ever seen. They named it Homo naledi, and it was wrong, in the most fascinating way. Homo naledi walked upright and had hands a lot like yours, but its brain was tiny, roughly a third the size of yours, about the size of an orange. By every assumption we had ever made, this was not a creature capable of thinking about death. This was supposed to be a simple animal. So what were its dead doing, deep inside a pitch-black cave that could only be reached by crawling through total darkness and squeezing through gaps no body tumbles into by accident? Berger and his team made a claim that set the entire field on fire. They argued that Homo naledi was deliberately placing its dead in that chamber, carrying bodies through the dark, choosing where they would rest. A small-brained ancient cousin doing something that looks a lot like burial, possibly 250,000 years ago. Not everyone believes it. The argument is fierce and far from settled. Critics say the bodies could have washed in, or fallen, or been dragged by something else, and that the evidence isn't strong enough yet. Berger insists the chamber leaves no other reasonable explanation. And that fight, happening right now, in real time, is one of the most important arguments in all of science. Because everything is riding on one question. If a creature with a brain the size of an orange was caring for its dead, then burial is not a trophy of how smart we eventually became. It came first, before the big brain, before us, which flips the whole story upside down. We always assumed it ran one way. First, humans got intelligent. Then, being intelligent, we understood death. Then, understanding death, we invented burial, a neat little staircase leading up to us. But if the dead were being cared for before the intelligence arrived, then maybe the staircase runs the other direction. Maybe we didn't bury our dead because we understood death. Maybe we came to understand death because we couldn't stop caring for the dead. The grief came first, the meaning came after. We may have buried our way into being human. Let's follow the trail forward because it only gets clearer. By the time our own species is fully on the scene, the dead are not just being hidden, they are being honored. In a cave called Panga Yasaidi, on the coast of Kenya, a team led by the researcher Maria Martinon Torres uncovered the oldest known human burial in Africa. It was a child, around 3 years old. The body had been curled up, gently, on its side, as if asleep, and lowered into a pit dug into the cave floor about 78,000 years ago. The researchers gave the child a name, Mtoto, which simply means child in Swahili, a toddler, tucked in, by hands we will never see, almost 80,000 years ago. Does anything about that feel foreign to you? Or does it feel like the most familiar thing in the world? And it keeps escalating. Move to the Neanderthals, the human cousins so often dismissed as brutes, and you find them doing it too. In Shenadar Cave, in the mountains of northern Iraq, an archaeologist named Ralph Selecki excavated a Neanderthal skeleton surrounded by dense clusters of ancient pollen. His colleague, the pollen specialist Arlette Leroy Gurhan, studied those grains and proposed something stunning. The Neanderthal had been laid to rest on a bed of flowers. The flower burial, they called it. For decades, it was one of the most moving images in all of prehistory. Then came the doubt, because good science always brings doubt. Other researchers pointed out that the pollen might have been carried in by a burrowing rodent, that the flowers might be a beautiful mistake. The story wobbled. And here is what I love about this. The scientists didn't just defend the romance. They went back. A new team returned to Shanidar and dug again, and found another Neanderthal, deliberately placed, in a spot that suggests these people returned to the same location to lay their dead. The flowers are still debated. The care is not. These were not brutes throwing away their kin. They were grieving. So look at what we've actually found. Bodies in a pit 500,000 years ago. A small-brained cousin in a dark chamber. A toddler tucked into the earth. Neanderthals returning to a place to bury their own. Different species, different continents, different hundreds of thousands of years, all circling the same impossible behavior, and not one of them gained a single calorie from it. That's the part that should stop you cold. Every other thing we evolved had a payoff. Fire cooked food. Tools killed prey. Language coordinated the hunt. Each one helped you survive and have children. But burying the dead helps no one survive. It costs time, effort, and real risk, and it gives back nothing your body can use. Evolution is supposed to throw away anything that's expensive and useless. It didn't throw this away. So, what was it quietly buying? The answer might be the most human thing of all. It was buying meaning. When you bury someone, you are making a statement the universe does not agree with. You are saying this one mattered. This one was not just meat in motion. This one was a person, and a person does not simply dissolve into the dirt without being marked. A grave is an argument against meaninglessness. It is the first time any creature looked at the blank, indifferent face of death and said, "No, you do not just get to erase this." We were the animal that refused to let our dead disappear. And in refusing, in digging that first pit and laying that first body down with care, we may have invented the very idea that a life can have weight at all. Almost everything came from that. Religion grew out of the grave. So did the afterlife, and ceremony, and the haunting suspicion that there is something more. The pyramids are a grave. Half the rituals you have ever attended trace back, somehow, to a body and the people who could not bear to leave it. We are still, after 500,000 years, doing the exact same thing those ancient hands did in the dark. Look around at the world you live in. The cemeteries on the edge of every town. The headstone with a name and 2 dates and a small line between them that was somehow an entire life. The photo you can't bring yourself to delete. The way your voice drops when you talk about someone who is gone. None of it feeds you. None of it is efficient. All of it is you, performing the oldest unbroken ritual your lineage has, a behavior so ancient it may predate your own species, passed hand to hand through the dark for 10,000 generations, all the way down to you. So someday, someone is going to bury you, and when they stand around that patch of dirt and refuse to simply walk away, they will not be doing something modern or civilized or new. They will be doing the oldest, strangest, most stubbornly human thing there has ever been. They will be insisting that you mattered, just as a small band of creatures with brains the size of oranges once insisted, in the dark, hundreds of thousands of years, before anyone could explain why. Some things, it turns out, were human long before we were.